This season, the projections are what?
The projections for this season are to have an above average season, but the question is, what does that mean? An average season, we would have 10 hurricanes, 10 named storms. Let me start over. In an average season, we would have 10 named storms, 6 of which would become hurricanes, and 2 of those would be major. But our forecast for this year is actually for 17 named storms instead of 10. 9 of which would become hurricanes, and 5 of those would be major. But the problem that you run into when you talk about an above average season is it doesn't really matter how many hurricanes are out there, it matters how many come to Florida. So for instance, in 1992 when we had Hurricane Andrew, that was a below average season. But still, Andrew obviously had a huge impact on the state of Florida. In 2004, we didn't have a lot of hurricanes either, but 4 of them impacted our state.
And also the size of the hurricane obviously makes a huge difference, right? Because you can have a Category 1 that blows through, or a high-grade tropical storm, and there might be some wind damage and things like that, but when you get up to the level of a Category 3 or higher, then it changes.
Right. The intensity is the biggest factor when it comes to hurricanes. Even if you have 20 storms and they're all just tropical storms and they're not at hurricane strength, then great, we get some much-needed rain, which we need here in Central Florida. But yes, once you have an intensity of a Category 3, you have a Katrina, that's when things start to get scary, because that's when you're talking about winds in excess of 130, 150 miles per hour.
Right. What can people do? Obviously, there's plenty of time when it's a hurricane to prepare, because they're forecasted. When they start to develop, it gives us
days
sometimes.
Yes.
Right? So what can people do? I mean, and not to, they shouldn't wait till 5 hours before the hurricane's supposed to slam into the state of Florida, but they have time. What should they do to get ready?
Right. I think the biggest thing is to just have a plan, know what your plan is going to be for yourself and your family, and then have what we call your disaster kit ready to go. That's something that you can prepare ahead of time, because yes, you don't want to be waiting in line at the Home Depot or at the grocery store to try to find bottled water that's all sold out, or to try to get boards on your window when the winds are already starting to blow. We found that in 2004 when the storms came through. I think people figured, it's not really going to come here. We're really going to be okay. And then all of a sudden, when Charlie happened, we realized, you know what? This can happen in Florida, and we need to be ready. So I think shopping, and the best advice I can give to someone is to put yourself in a what-if scenario and say, what if I didn't have power in my house for 3 days? What if I didn't have electricity for a week or a week and a half, which is what happened when Charlie came through Central Florida in 2004. So it's amazing when you start to think, okay, I have kids, I have an elderly parent living with me, depending on what your specific need is, how much water do you need, how much food do you need, and how are you going to keep your family safe for 7 days without electricity?
Good answers. I'm trying to think of where we can go from here, because we don't need a heck of a lot of stuff, and that's good what we've got so far. Mike?
Talked about the forecast, the plan.
Yeah, we got projections, the forecast, the plan. Oh yeah, WESH TV.
Oh yeah.
News organizations. But when the hurricanes are on the horizon, so to speak, you guys kick it into high gear, don't you? We
do. We all try to make sure, obviously, ahead of time that our families are safe and that we have our own action plans in place at our homes, so that when a hurricane gets to 24, 48 hours out, we kick into gear and we are pretty much at work. We go into 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and each day that we come to work, we don't know if we're going to be able to leave or not. We have to bring our sleeping bags, our change of clothes. We have food here, everything that we need, because we're actually pretty safe inside this building, but we have everything that we need here, so that if we have to stay here for 3, 4, 5 days, we might have to do that.
And what is the master plan in terms of information and throwing the information out there to the general public? I mean, obviously, like you said, it's 24-hour news at that time.
Right.
But kind of describe, what it is you guys are trying to do in terms of getting the information out there about what's going on.
The biggest thing that I hear from people when I'm out talking to the community is that their #1 priority is keeping their family safe and keeping themselves safe. So they want to know especially the timing. What time is the rain going to be at my house? What time are these winds at 60, 80, 100 miles per hour going to be at my house? So that's our #1 priority when the hurricane is approaching, to let people know the time frame of it, and then obviously while it's happening, you know, as the storms are moving through, what time will the threat then be gone? So I think that's our #1 thing during the storm as far as the weather team goes, and then obviously the news organization as a whole has different goals and agendas as far as, you know, not only keeping people safe, but then after the event to go out and let people know, okay, what happened.
Right. The team here, meteorologists, let's talk about that. You guys have a full staff, so
we do,
and they're all meteorologists. So talk about that, and it's just the level of, you know, the level of expertise that comes out of the WESH 2 Weather Center.
Okay, yeah, especially when we go into hurricane mode, you know, we all have to work together as a team, because when you go into a situation like we had with Francis, where you're here for 12 days straight, you get exhausted, obviously, and you can't talk for 24 hours a day. So we go into team mode. We have to work together. We help each other out. We've got fabulous technology that, with our radars and our equipment that we have here to let people know what time storms are coming through. So it's a relief to be able to have the support of the great technology and a great staff, of course, as well, our news staff. But definitely as a team, it's very important that we work together and make sure we get the information out.